Let me start the recording right now. Okay, we should be good. So welcome to the weekly morecustomersfaster.com webinar. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Robert Stanley. And just real quick, can you tell me in the chat box there if you can hear me or not? Just so I know that everything's working right, since I'm already having issues with my space. Hear me okay? Yes, no, maybe? Yes, okay, good. Perfect, and you can see my screen, I assume. So this is, as usual, this will be recorded and it will be posted in the member archive and most likely on YouTube. So you'll be able to get that in the More Customers Faster YouTube channel. So this week we're going to talk about split testing with analytics. It's kind of a logical transition from last week's training where I talked about conversion tracking. So if you did not make it to last week's training, you'll definitely want to go catch the recording because much of what was done last week leads into what we're going to learn about this week. Okay. So as is the normal scenario here, this is a pitch-free, content-only webinar. We're going to talk about cool stuff when it comes to lead generation, conversion, marketing tools, that sort of thing. And we do this every Thursday at 11 a.m. Pacific time. So in the future, when you register, you'll automatically be registered for the next webinar, but it turns out that I set this all up incorrectly in my haste to get this out there the first few times. So you might get a couple of annoying reminder emails from me. Assuming you find value in this training, just go back and re-register again for next week's and you should be good to go. So um, mouse click, there you go. So what we're going to do is, again, talk about split testing with Google Analytics. It's really quite simple to do. If you're not familiar with Google Analytics, you definitely need to have an account and also go to google.com/analytics for that. Most of the people I know, and I myself personally use WordPress for website development, landing pages, so on. So a lot of what I'll talk about in terms of integrating these things will be in relationship to that. So today we'll talk a little bit about two different plugins that'll help you in this process. One is called the Header Footer plugin, and another one is Per Post Scripts and Styles plugin. Now, the reason you need this is so that you can put in the split testing code from Google Analytics, and I'll cover that in a little bit more detail here in a moment. So this is what a split test result should look like. So by the time you finish one of these things, it should look similar to this. And this particular test result that you're seeing, I had a control, which was the one at the top that converted at 60%, and then two other ones where I was testing social media icons versus real life buttons. And I actually wrote a whole report on it, but I never finished it. So maybe I'll finish that report and make that available to folks here in the near future. But the point is that if you ever want to test something and see if it's going to improve your result, this is the way to do it. And a 17% increase in opt-ins, if you map that back to your sales process, can be a big difference. I mean, it could be the difference between making one sale and making three sales. And if that's a $1,000 product, a 17% increase is an additional $2,000 in revenue. So that's why this stuff is so important. Now, Google Analytics isn't the only, split testing tool out there, but it is free. I mean, there's other ones like Kissmetrics and Optimizely and Visual Web Optimizer, and those things all have different price points, and they cost money. So, and certainly when you get to a certain point in your internet marketing career or life cycle, or you're making enough money with your product or company, it does make sense to invest in some of these tools. But for the majority of us, we're just doing basic split testing, and so we're going to use something like Google Analytics. As we talked about last week, you do have to have goals created. So if you missed last week's webinar, we talked about goals and conversions. And the only way you can tell if an experiment is working or is going to win is if you're tracking the result of that experiment, right? So a key part of making your split test work using Google Analytics experiments is to have goals set up. So this webinar, this training assumes that you have that part already done. Now, the steps are pretty simple. So pretty much you just go into your Google Analytics account, assuming that you have it set up, and go into the behavior section, and down at the bottom there you'll see the link to experiments. If you don't have an experiment set up, as is the case in this example, when you go there, you'll see it'll pop up a page like this when you start it. And basically, they just ask you to enter the URL of your page that you'd like to improve. So to kind of keep it relevant, for those of you that have registered for this, you may have seen the free training sign up page, which is what I put in here for this training and for the example. And then when you put that page in, when you define the landing page that you're going to test, the next thing you do is define the goal. So you have to have an objective. And last week we talked about phone calls, and we also talked about opt-in forms. As you can see from this drop-down menu here, we could even make one of the goals to have the phone ring. So it doesn't necessarily have to be purely web forms, Aweber type stuff, subscribers, that kind of thing. So if you want to watch the past training, you can go to the YouTube channel, which is youtube.com/more customers faster. You can also check the free training archive page, which you're supposed to be redirected to after you sign up for one of these trainings. And then real soon, I'm going to have a free members area so that I can put additional items in there, the checklist, the PDF that I just spoke of a moment ago, that kind of thing, and create some logical associations between these trainings, because once we get a few weeks into this, just jumping into YouTube, it doesn't order things correctly, so it makes it hard to find what you're looking for in some cases. So the next step after you select the landing page that you're going to split test is to create the additional settings. So you can see up here at the top that and I think you can see up here at the top that we've set the name for the experiment. We've set the objective, which is your goal, and then the percentage of traffic that you want to send to the experiment. So in this case, 100%. You can send a small portion of all your visitors to an experiment, and then whether or not you want to distribute the traffic evenly. Now, I tend to do the simple, just get her done version of all these things. So I set it to distribute evenly. And in this case, the experiment is set to run for 3 days. Uh, depending upon how much traffic you're getting, I think you can set it up to 2 weeks. And I would recommend that you run it for 2 weeks if possible, because then it'll be a, a more likely winner in that scenario, right? The more traffic you send to it, the more realistic the result will be. So the next thing you do on step 2 there is basically add the variation. So whatever you think is going to do better or worse, or whatever the case may be. Now, oftentimes, what you'll want to do is basically a variation of the exact same page. So you might just change the headline, or you might change a picture or something like that. But typically, you're only going to want to test one thing. In this case, I'm just testing a completely different page. I just want to see if one page will convert better than the other when people visit. Now, the one at the top there is the one that most of you have seen, and I just added this other one with the orange button and a testimonial down below as variation 1, and to see which one of these which one of these pages is going to convert best over this 3-day period. Now, the thing that's not going to work as it relates to this particular experiment is the fact that I only started it today, and no one else, I don't think, is going to sign up for the webinar over the next 3 days. There might be some stragglers, who knows? But we'll run this a few more times so I can show you some additional data later. So, there's my little moving arrow. Forgot about that. So, basically what you're going to do is you're going to split the traffic between those two pages, right? So you're going to send half of it to one, half of it to the other. Right now, the one on the left is the current page. I actually have not done any real testing on it to see how well it converts. So it makes sense to do some, and it's very easy to do, particularly when you have, a good way to create multiple versions of a landing page. And then the other one will get the other half of the traffic, right? And so as I said before, we're going to set it to distribute that traffic evenly across both of those different pages, and it's going to happen over the next 3 days. Now, here's the part where some people get stuck because it can be a little bit techy, and this is where is required regardless of what platform you use, whether it's Google or something else. You have to install some code because it's basically done with JavaScript. Pretty much anything in the analytics space, tracking space, is going to use some sort of JavaScript code. So once you've gone through this step, right, and you've added you've set all the settings and your threshold and the number of days, you hit next step, this is what you'll see. You'll see this bunch of code here. So I hit the button up top that says manually insert your code. And so that's why it's showing me all this. If you have a webmaster, a web developer, then you've got the other button at the top there where you can say send to a webmaster, so you can send it to them. Now here's what you need to know about this. This code is not like Google Analytics. It doesn't go on every page. It only goes on the experiment page that is the control. So your original landing page, and it only goes in the head area of the web page. So you'll see I highlighted it in yellow for you there. It says opening head tag at the top of your original page. And so some people make the mistake of putting it down in the footer or the body or somewhere else, or they put it on all their pages. That also will not work. I did a retargeting webinar a while back and explained the difference between the locations. And so for those of you that are tech savvy, you probably will get bored by this next slide, but those of you that are kind of newer, you'll love this. So this is basically the best explanation I've come up with in terms of where these things go. So when you look at a typical website, you got the top, the middle, and the bottom, right? It's just a page. And so the blue area is what we call the head area in the HTML language, or header. The body, just like a person, is in the middle, I guess a person's technically a torso. And then the footer, right? The feet. And so some code needs to go in the header and some need to go in the footer. And you have to pay attention whenever you get code from one of these types of tools, whether they specify header or footer. For example, if you're tracking Facebook elements or Facebook tracking pixels, Facebook conversions, and you're doing Facebook ads, I believe that they want it at the body and the bottom of the body. So in other words, just above that slash body there. So normally it'll be like pictures, images, and text, and then they want you to put your Facebook code right at the bottom of that green section. And for the most part, when you're using WordPress, there are really nice, useful, easy plugins that you can just throw into WordPress and accomplish this task. So one of them is this per post scripts and styles. So unlike these Google Analytic plugins and things that you can get from WordPress, a lot of those are very simple and they just stick code on all the pages automatically. What this one does is it allows you to put code on a very specific page. So if you create a landing page on WordPress, so maybe that's your newsletter sign up page, or it's your free video sign up page, or whatever the case may be, make an appointment page, it doesn't matter. You're going to want to put just the code on just that page. So in those pages and posts area, when you select whichever one you want to edit, when you have the plugin installed, you'll see this little extra thing at the bottom there that's highlighted in red. Basically, that's where you're going to stick the code. Now, as I said before, you need to pay attention to whether it's header or footer, and that's why I showed you that graphical layout, because if it's header, it goes in the header area, like highlighted here. If it's footer code, it goes in the footer. Okay, so just pay attention to those things. If the worst case scenario when you mess something like this up is that it just doesn't work. So it's not like you're going to break your website or anything like that if you're using WordPress. You put the code in there and it doesn't show up correctly, or it tells you that there's an error, it's because you probably didn't put it in the right spot. So, they've given you the code, you've defined the two different pages, and you've put that code on those pages. So the next step is to actually verify. So they'll actually tell you, here's your code. Now, would you like to verify that the code is working? And when you say yes, 9 out of 10 times, Google experiments will tell you it can't find the code and there's an error, even though it's working. That was the case in my test that I did recently, and everyone I've ever done in the past. It always tells me it can't find it, but the reality is it's really there. And the way to find out for sure is to, if you're in Firefox or Chrome or whatever, you can just right-click on the screen, and it'll bring up a bunch of code that no one understands, including myself for the most part. And that doesn't matter. All you're really looking for is what I have highlighted in yellow here, which is that Google Analytic Content Experiment code. So as long as that code is showing up on the page when you view source, then you know it's installed, even though Google's telling you it's not working. Okay. Now, again, if this is all foreign language to you, or it's too confusing, or something that you think you can't do, you could always hire someone else to do it. And it's really, for somebody that knows a little bit of HTML, it's not that complicated. Now, once the experiment code is in there, then it will tell you that it's running. So just like you see here, there's a little yellow status of running. Yellow means it's running, but no one's actually visited the page yet. One of the ways that you can test that it's actually working and that it's sending, one visitor to one page and one to the other, is to open up multiple browsers and go to your original landing page. What should happen is that for every browser you open, it will move you from, the original to the split test, the original split test. So for example, when I opened it with Chrome, it gave me the original page, and then when I brought up Firefox so that opened the same page, it gave me the experiment page. And you'll also see some funky code up in the URL that'll kind of indicate that it's working as well. That's another way you can determine that it's working without actually, going in and viewing the code source and things like that. And then, as I said before, the result is going to look something like this once you've run it for a while and run enough traffic. For this screenshot in particular, I think there was about 200 to 300 clicks that went to each one of those variations. So about 1,000 clicks total to produce this result. As you can tell, the conversion rate on these were really high, and that's because it was an email only opt-in form. So those always tend to be rather high, but even still, a 71% conversion is extremely high, right? I did, just before we got on here, I did bring up the free training split test just so that you could see what it would look like. And as of right now, the original one is winning. We've only had 53 visitors. And you can see that we've had 16 visits on one and 37 on the other. And the conversion rate on the original is 56%. And the conversion rate on the variation, which is the one with the orange button, is about 24%. Now, I would not consider this really a valid test for a couple reasons. Number one, there's not enough visitors. And number two, I did this morning, I did go buy a Facebook. I did put in a Facebook event and do a promoted post. And so that means some of the traffic is cold traffic, whereas some of the traffic is from my email list. And so that'll actually throw off your numbers. And that brings us into some best practices when it comes to split testing. So number one, you need to make sure that you really do think about what your goal is for the split test. So when people go to a page, do you really just want their email and their name, or do you want to get sales, or do you want to get phone calls? That becomes important in terms of your test, because maybe one converts better because all you ask for is an email address, but does it really get you sales? Probably not. The general rule is that the more hoops you make someone jump through to get to your page or to get into your members area, whatever the case may be, the more qualified they are, right? The more interested they are. Someone who's really desperate to get help with something is going to be willing to go through a lot more steps than someone who's only mildly interested. The other one, which I mentioned earlier, is to just test one element or one page variation. So I tested two different versions of a webinar sign up page or a free training sign up page. What a better test probably would be just to split test the headline. But I was just curious if one page would be, a stronger version than the other. So once I know which page wins, the very next test I'll probably do is the headline. And then, as I said a moment ago, you really do need to consider the traffic. So how many visitors come to the page? I mean, I wouldn't say that 50 is enough. You're going to want to see at least 100 to each version of your landing page, in my opinion. You also need to consider the source. So is it paid traffic? Are you doing Google pay-per-click, or is it a joint venture person who's sending an email on your behalf, or is it your own list with your own email? If you mix all those things together, then I would say that your conversion information is kind of irrelevant, because now there's each of those audiences are in a different state of mind when they arrive at your page. And probably the most pure test is when you buy traffic, or what most of us refer to as cold traffic, and send them to one of those types of pages, and then base your decision on the reaction to that that page from the cold traffic. But then that brings in another thing, is quality and targeting. So if you do buy traffic, this is one of the reasons that people love Facebook so much, and we'll actually do some Facebook advertising in the future and talk about that in the future trainings. But the better you target your audience, the higher likelihood that it's going to convert. So if you just go buy some random traffic, buy clicks from some guy on the internet, or you target everybody on the planet for your offer, it's obviously it's not going to convert, right? So if you're advertising internet marketing stuff to someone who knows nothing about internet marketing, they're not even going to click on your ad. And so that's kind of where all that stuff comes into play. I mean, that's a very extreme example, but that's kind of how it breaks down. In order to get pages to convert well, you also need to have good copywriting skills and some good copy on there. We'll talk about that in the future as well. And a lot of that really just comes down to thinking about what's the state of mind of the individual that's visiting the page. Where are they coming from? What are they looking for? And that kind of thing. Now, I told you I wasn't going to sell anything, and I'm not, but I do want to tell you that I have an upcoming workshop. If you're interested, there's a couple spots open for the one in Phoenix on March 17th, and then we're going to do one on April 17th here in San Diego. It's called the Lead Generation Workshop, and we actually sit down with me, and we'll go through and build out your funnel, and we'll even run Facebook ads and get you some opt-ins and some likes and things like that. Now, a lot of you are beyond that and are advanced and don't need that kind of thing, but if you're trying to get started and get something set up, then you can go to the main website and click the live events page, and then go there and sign up. I don't have the San Diego one up there yet. I will put it up once the Phoenix one has passed. If you have questions about that, you can hit the little question thing at the bottom of the website as well. Our next training, we're going to talk about some more advanced stuff. So we're going to go a little bit deeper. I'm going to show you some heat mapping tools, give you some ideas on different things you can use for advanced analytic stuff like this. And I'm also going to ask for, probably after this webinar today, I'll send out some requests for topics in the future. So we'll talk about advanced analytics, heat mapping, some of those third-party tools like Optimizely, and then some inexpensive or free ones that you can use as well. I'll even tell you how I created this one and where it came from, and how you can do the same thing on your website or landing page for free. Now, one of the things that heat maps are really great for is to tell you what people are clicking on the most, or if they're clicking on things that you didn't think they would click on. A common thing that you'll see, and we'll talk about this next week, is they'll click on images, and the images that you have may not be clickable at all, and maybe they should be, right? Because people tend to like those types of things. Facebook has kind of proven that to us when you look at the Facebook advertising realm. So that's it. That's kind of how you set up split testing in a nutshell. At this point, if you have any questions, I'd be glad to take your questions. I know that there's this is the middle of the day, so we don't get as many people on here as there are actually registered. I think a lot of people just want to catch the replay, but if you have a question, you can put it in the question box. I'll be glad to answer that. Otherwise, you can go and subscribe to the YouTube channel or check the members archive page, and the recorded version of this will be available. In the near future here, I'll also be adding transcripts and checklists and stuff like that, which I'll put in there. Richard is asking, have you seen issues with the Google Tag Manager and the additional code snippets? That's a good question. I haven't seen issues with it other than the fact it's a little confusing. There is a Google Tag Manager kind of checker tool for Chrome. So I forget what the name of it is called. Let me just look real quick here. Whoops, I almost ended the webinar. I don't want to do that. There's a Chrome extension if you use Google Chrome, and it is called Google Tag Assistant, and it will actually tell you. In fact, let me just bring it over here so you can see it. Hopefully you can see my screen now. See this little smiley face guy over here? So this is the Tag Assistant, and it'll actually tell you what code is on the page and whether or not it's working. Let's see what it says about the More Customers Faster thing. Oh, I'm logged in, so I might be messing this up. Hold on. If I can log out here. Now I've messed myself up. That's funny. Google Tag Assistant's not seeing anything on here. Let me go to my regular blog and see what it says. Also not working. Oh, you know why? Because I'm using an advanced analytic tool called Segment.io, which I'll talk about next week, because it doesn't actually have Google Code on here. So let me go somewhere random. Go to this one of my friends' websites, so I think they have analytics installed. It should show up here. Check this. Oh, I wasn't hitting the check. Okay, so right now you can see it says Google Analytics and that it's working and everything. If you have, a split testing code, retargeting code, whatever, the Tag Assistant will tell you that. So I don't know if you've used that, Richard, but so let's see, we've got a couple other questions here. Columbia says, what stats are available in Google Analytics or other for remarketing? If you install remarketing on a client site, can you prove what your results are from? Absolutely. Yeah, so you can basically set up reports and dashboards, Columbia, that will tell you where the traffic's coming from. And retargeting in AdWords, there's actually the ability to set conversions for that. So they'll tell you how many conversions you're getting from your retargeting. And I can tell you that I have clients who do get phone calls and web form conversions from retargeting. It's not a high volume for Google, but it's worth it because it's inexpensive. And oddly enough, they really like the idea of having their brand, their banner chasing their clients around. Jason is asking if you have a recommendation about themes, stuff like that. It kind of depends on what your goal is, Jason. If you want to see this little thing down here at the bottom of the More Customers Faster website, whoops, where it says leave a message, you can just send me a message on there, Jason. I'll answer you. It goes to my support desk. Okay, that answers Richard's question. Cool, awesome. Any other questions? As I was saying, if you do want to check out the live event stuff, you can just click this and the red button there, or the red thing, and look at attending one of the live events in the future if you care to do that. Any other questions before I wrap this up? So the point of this is to not have those 3-hour webinars that you sometimes get stuck on, but just have quick little informational things. Great. I appreciate you all coming here today. I will convert this and stick this up on the YouTube channel, and hopefully I can see you next week. You want to know the link to the YouTube channel? Richard says, shout out to Tempe. Hey, Richard, what's up, man? Um, yeah, the YouTube channel is youtube.com/more customers faster. So there it is. You can see I need to set up my channel art, but not much in there now because we're just getting started. But you know, this is going to load up pretty quick doing one of these a week. So that's all you need to do to go there and see the recorded version of this. I'd also encourage you to subscribe. So, you know, somewhere on here is a subscribe button. So you can just, oh, right there, it says subscribe. So if you want to subscribe to the channel, that would be awesome because it'll notify you when the video is uploaded if you are a subscriber. It'll just send you an email and say there's a new video. All right. Thank you, everybody. That's the end of the webinar. I look forward to seeing you next week. Same time, same channel, same place. And like I said before, when you register next week, it should automatically add you to any follow-up webinars and a little easier for you to find your way back here. So thanks again for your time, and I look forward to seeing you in the very near future.